very knowledge that caused their destruction. Minha paused, her mind racing. The discovery of the tablets wasn't just an archaeological breakthrough, it was a warning. This civilization had uncovered something so dangerous that they had sealed it away, hidden it from time itself, in hopes that no one would ever find it again. "Dr. Ha, look at this!" Tuan called out, his voice laced with excitement and concern. He pointed to a final tablet that was unlike the others. Its surface was not carved, but rather covered with strange moving patterns. As Minha approached, she felt a strange pull, a magnetic attraction, as if the tablet was calling to her. Carefully, she extended her hand and touched it. The moment her fingers made contact, a surge of energy coursed through her, unlike anything she had ever felt. Her vision blurred, and for a moment it felt as though the very fabric of time and space had bent around her. Images flashed in her mind, visions of the ancient civilization, of their final moments, and of a powerful force, an energy source, locked deep within the earth, waiting to be released. "Minha!" Tuan shouted, grabbing her arm. She snapped back to reality, gasping for breath, her heart pounding in her chest. What just happened?" she murmured, her mind reeling. Tuan's face was pale with fear. "That tablet. I think it did something to you." Minha nodded slowly, still trying to process the vision she had just experienced. She had glimpsed the power that the ancient civilization had once harnessed, and the catastrophic consequences it had unleashed. The civilization hadn't just disappeared. They had vanished because they had played with forces they couldn't understand. As she collected herself, Minha realized that the chamber they were in might not just be a tomb for forgotten knowledge. It could be a prison, a seal designed to keep that power from ever escaping. The energy she had felt was unlike anything they had encountered before. The artifacts, the crystals, the tablets, all of it was connected to that ancient, dangerous force. "We need to leave. Now," Minha said urgently, her voice firm. "This place, it's not just a treasure trove, it's a warning." The team hurried to gather their things, but as they turned to leave, they noticed something disturbing. The stone doors, which had been wide open before, were now closing slowly, as if being drawn shut by an unseen force. The energy in the room seemed to shift, becoming heavier, more oppressive. "Move!" Minha shouted, and the team bolted for the exit. As they ran down the narrow corridor, the walls began to tremble, the ground beneath them vibrating. The entire structure seemed to be coming alive, reacting to their presence. When they finally emerged into the open air, gasping for breath, the forest seemed unnaturally still. The air was thick with tension, and the world around them felt different, darker, more foreboding. The treasure they had uncovered was not just history. It was alive, pulsing with a dangerous energy that could not be ignored. Minha took a deep breath, her eyes scanning the dense forest around them. The discovery was far from over. They had only just begun to scratch the surface of what lay hidden beneath the earth. But now, more than ever, she felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. She had to protect this knowledge, to make sure it didn't fall into the wrong hands. And as they made their way back to camp, Minha couldn't shake the feeling that they had awakened something far greater than they had anticipated. Force that, if left unchecked, could change the course of history once again. The ancient civilization had vanished because they had uncovered the ultimate power, and now they had left the clues behind, waiting for someone to find them. Minha knew one thing for sure. The story of this treasure and the forces it contained was far from finished. That night, back at the temporary jungle camp, the air was thick with silence. Even the usual symphony of nocturnal life seemed muted, as though the forest itself was holding its breath. Minha sat alone near the campfire, the ancient book open in her lap, its brittle pages glowing faintly in the firelight. She traced one of the symbols with her finger, its meaning still swimming in the depths of her mind. What she had seen, those visions, were not hallucinations. They were memories, or echoes, somehow imprinted on the tablet and passed to her through the strange energy it carried. Tuan approached quietly, sitting beside her. "You're still thinking about it, aren't you?" She nodded, not taking her eyes off the book. "There's more," she whispered. "I don't think that chamber was the only one." Tuan looked at her, puzzled. "What do you mean?" Minha turned to a page she hadn't dared read until now. The symbols on it were clearer, more structured, a map of sorts, interlaced with coordinates written in the ancient script. This civilization, they built multiple vaults. That chamber wasn't a final resting place, it was a warning beacon. The others might still be out there, scattered across the world. Tuan leaned closer. Are you saying they stored this energy in more than one place? She nodded again. Exactly, and if someone finds one of the other vaults before we understand what we're dealing with. She didn't need to finish the sentence. The consequences were already evident. The next morning, Minha called a meeting with the rest of the team. She explained everything, the vision, the map, the warnings. There was no hiding the truth now. They weren't just archaeologists anymore. They were the keepers of a fragile balance between the past and the present. We have two options, Minha said firmly. We can try to forget what we saw and hope no one finds the other vaults, or we can stay one step ahead. Tuan looked at her. You want to track them down? Yes, Minha said, to study them, to protect them, before someone else tries to use them. The team exchanged uncertain glances. They had signed up to uncover the past, not to guard it from the future. But one by one, they nodded. They trusted Minha, and they understood the gravity of what they'd found. Over the following weeks, Minha began decoding the coordinates. The tablets hinted at locations buried in vast deserts, beneath ocean trenches, and even hidden deep within the ice of the polar regions. Each site was described in poetic, metaphorical terms: the eye that watches the dunes, the heart beneath the frozen sky, the temple of salt and silence. But one location stood out among the rest: the Vault of Echoes, described as the first of the ancient storage sites, older than the chamber they had discovered, the origin of the knowledge. Minha circled it on the map. That's where we go next. And so began a new chapter in their journey, not just to uncover history, but to protect it. Minha understood now that this was no longer about gold or relics. It was about choices, about whether humanity would repeat the mistakes of the past or finally learn from them. The ancient civilization had left behind more than ruins. They had left a test, and Minha was determined not to fail. The Hidden Treasure, a Discovery Story Part 5. 2 months later, a bitter wind howled across the icy plains of southern Siberia. A white wilderness stretched endlessly in all directions, harsh, remote, and utterly untouched by civilization. Minha stood bundled in thick thermal gear, staring at the frozen cliffs ahead. According to the deciphered map, the Vault of Echoes was buried somewhere beneath this desolate tundra. Her breath formed pale clouds in the frigid air as her team worked behind her, setting up equipment near the rocky face of a glacial ridge. This place was as the ancient text described, where silence is deeper than sleep and echoes are swallowed by time. Tuan approached with a scanner in hand. We're picking up something, he said, excitement creeping into his voice despite the cold. About 20 meters beneath the surface. The ground's not ice, it's hollow. Minha's heart quickened. Start digging. It took nearly 3 days. On the 4th morning, as dawn's faint glow lit the ice, they broke through into darkness. The entrance revealed itself, a narrow shaft descending into the depths, lined with smooth, obsidian-like stone. Strange carvings ran down the walls, symbols that glowed faintly when touched, responding to body heat, or perhaps even presence itself. The team descended slowly, their headlamps barely piercing the thick air. As they reached the chamber below, a low hum filled the space, a frequency so low it was more felt than heard. Minha froze. They had arrived. The Vault of Echoes was not like the first chamber. It was vast, cathedral-like in structure, with high arched ceilings and immense crystalline columns that pulsed softly with blue light. In the center stood a single platform, and upon it a perfectly spherical object floated in the air, spinning slowly. It looked metallic, but with a surface that shimmered like water and reflected images that weren't quite real, images of people and places Minha didn't recognize, like memories from lives she'd never lived. It's a memory core, she whispered. A record. Tuan looked around, uneasy. Why is it still active? As Minha stepped closer, the sphere flared with light, and her mind was pulled once more into the vision. This time, the experience was deeper. She didn't just see the fall of the ancient civilization, she felt it. Fear, pride, the desperate hope of scientists and priests trying to contain something that had already begun to unravel, And then something else. A voice. If you hear this, you must choose. Preserve what we were, or become what we feared. The vision shattered, and Minha stumbled back, gasping. Tuan caught her, his face pale. What did it say? He asked. She looked at him, eyes wide with a mixture of wonder and dread. This isn't just a vault, it's a failsafe. The memory core, if activated fully, had the power to transmit knowledge, technologies, energy manipulation, consciousness transfer, but at a cost. If mishandled, it would do what it had done before, destabilize nature itself. And worse, this was only one of 7. Minha stood in silence, the weight of the world pressing on her shoulders. She had thought her mission was to protect the vaults. Now she realized it was far more complicated. They had a decision to make, uncovering the truth or burying it forever. But somewhere in the echoes of the vault, that ancient voice still whispered,